Coming up next, one of the greatest singers of the rock era tells the stories behind some of his biggest hits. It's a cool interview. He's actually was in one of the most famous twosomes in rock history, and he drops a bomb in this sit-down. He never really collaborated with his songwriting partner. I'll find out more in the interview, but he also tells the story of using a Boy Scout canteen to come up with the iconic percussion sound on an 80s classic. And the same song, he taught some of us how to spell. He also tells the story of being involved in the largest gathering of legends ever to sing on a #1 hit. And he described it as like being back in 8th grade choir. And the song that he gave away to an old school band, but their producer gave it back, saying to him, "Are you crazy? You can't give away this song. It's a #1 smash." And he ended up being right. It became this legend's final #1 hit. So many great stories in this interview. It's all coming up next on Professor of Rock. 1981, Private Eyes, the album, hit #5. And I want to ask you quick about the title track. You were kind of helping Warren Pash. He was in a band called the Cheaters. And tell me about that.
Well, Warren was friends with Jana, and they gave me this idea for Private Eyes, and it was similar but not. And then I took the song. This is musical. I took the music and kind of turned it around and added some things to it, and made it what it is musically. And then Sarah Allen and I wrote the lyrics, and so that was a real team effort. But that was a good idea that Warren had there.
Yeah, I know he saw like a billboard for a movie, The Private Eyes, and that's where kind of the idea for.
That's where you got it. Okay.
Music videos. This is where you guys started. All of a sudden, in the early 80s, everybody had to make music videos. And a lot of people were uncomfortable with that because they wanted the song to stand on its own. And sometimes a music video could enhance or ruin that.
Yeah, videos were a tricky thing. I never really liked them, to tell you the truth. I was never a big fan of doing them. And I thought they distracted. I've always been a fan. If you're going to show music, show it being performed. You don't have to have somebody flying around on an airplane or whatever.
Right.
But I was in that world, and it really did. It was effective. I will always say that. But it was an era that I could have done without, but I think a lot of people probably agree with me on that. Some people don't. It started a whole different thing where music became more than the song. It became more of a spectacle, and I think a lot of what's going on today in pop music owes that. What do you want to call it? The shallow part of it to the video thing.
Yeah,
rock and roll in Las Vegas.
Well, H2O, great record. Got to ask you about Maneater, another #1 smash. It's funny because I was interviewing Lamont Dozier some years ago, and he told me that when he first heard Maneater, when he first heard the first, coming in, he thought it was going to be you guys remaking You Can't Hurry Love. So he was really excited. And then he's like, oh, okay. Dang. I thought that was pretty cool.
T-Bone, who came up with that bass line, was, I think, James Jamerson that did that bass line you're talking about.
Yeah,
was his idol. That was his idol, James Jamerson. That's all he wanted to be, was another James Jamerson. And I think just instinctively he played something like that, and that's what it's. That's why it sounded that way. Even though we weren't going for that at all.
It's definitely got a Motown vibe for sure.
Well, hey, that ain't bad. That's okay.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Tell me about Maneater, because I've heard it was inspired by a couple different things, but tell me where that came from.
Originally, John came up with that chorus, a version of that chorus, and And then he played it for me, and he kind of played it like in a reggae version or something, or some folky reggae thing. And I said, well, that isn't really our style. And I sat down and I turned it into more of that beat, that Motown beat. Which I guess he called a shuffle or whatever. And then Sarah Allen and me and John together, all three of us wrote the lyrics, and we kind of pooled our resources. We were all living in New York City at the time, going to certain clubs, being around certain kinds of people, and there were lots of man-eaters around. And we just said, how about let's use that person there, let's use this person. And we just kind of did little vignettes of these people that we knew and the way they were, and just the kind of people they were.
Yeah, New York City in the 80s, it really captured that. And
Yeah.
of course, another great Charlie solo, sax solo.
Yeah, yeah. Well put together and all good. That was a real band song, you know. The band really played well on that song.
I've always wanted to ask you about One on One, because that's in my top 3 favorite songs you've ever done. It went to number 7. One of your best vocals, I think. Seems simple on the first few listens, but there's something really deep percolating if you listen to the lyrics on that song. Relationship, you think it might be about intimacy, but it's kind of also about change and renewal. And that's what I love about your lyrics, is when you go deep, you see that you're really something bubbling under there. Tell me about that song.
I wrote the lyrics to that after coming off a long road trip. And all I wanted to do was get back to, what do you want to call it? Get back to domesticity. And I think that's where that came from. I don't know. I mean, that song's very heartfelt. It's romantic, but yet it's sort of bittersweet and a relief. It's like the song is a release and a relief. I just want to stop, and that kind of thing.
It almost seems like it could be 2 different songs. You really wrote 2 songs in one. The chorus is so different from the verses, and I just love it. I think it's one of the great songs of the 80s.
The verses are kind of agitated, and the chorus smooths out like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You did that so well. I gotta ask you about Say It Isn't So, that came from Rock and Soul Part 1. Such a great song, musically, lyrically, the vocals. It was stuck at number 2 for 4 weeks behind one of the biggest songs of that year, Say, Say, Say. In fact, Say It Isn't So had been released a week before, a week after it would have been number 1.
Say, say, say what you want.
That's what's interesting about it. But tell me about that.
Well, again, it's a song I just wrote on the guitar. I think the thing that's the most notable about that song is, again, the way the band played it and the way the production came out. I mean, T-Bone's bass part was incredible. It just drove the song. That doom 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 doom. I mean, it's like unbelievable. I mean, I wouldn't have come up with that. Once he started doing that, we just started piling, sticking things around it. And that's a really well-constructed song. That's all I can say.
I agree. And the lyrics, two true rebels in a shell. And
yeah.
I did read somewhere that in the studio, the backing vocals were kind of inspired by the Flamingos version of I Only Have Eyes for You. And that there was kind of a problem with a break in the song that you guys solved later on.
You're right on that. That Say It Isn't So. That's very much like Only Have Eyes for You. You
Yeah.
know, that was inspired by that for sure. So it's a very haunting kind of sound, you know.
Tell me what you want, yeah.
It just kind of opened up. You know, the song was kind of lurking around in this darkness, and then it splats out at the end. What you wanna? It just goes, and then after that, it just goes to another place altogether.
I love
And
it. Yeah.
yeah, that's well, you know, that's dynamics. I try and put that kind of stuff in my songs.
I got to ask you about what you remember about We Are the World. Any memories that stick out? I mean, when it goes from MJ, Springsteen, Kenny Loggins, Steve Perry, you and Huey Lewis, that right there is the coolest part of the song for me. I just think you got vocal powerhouses there and so different and distinct. What stands out to you about We Are the World?
What you just described, it was very thought out by Quincy. He put different singers in different places to achieve that effect that you're talking about, and he set it up that way. You know, because each one of those people you just mentioned has a completely different voice, including me. You know, we're all completely different. So when you have people singing phrases like that, you have to construct it so it makes some kind of sense. A musical sense. And Quincy, was really amazing at doing that. I mean, I'm very impressed, you know, with his abilities to do that. Of course, he's one of the greatest of all time. But, you know, he proved it on that. I always say it's like 8th grade chorus, like the junior high chorus. Everybody reverted to the 8th grade, and Quincy was the choir director.
Yeah, that's the best way to say it.
Yeah.
Well, Big Bam Boom in '84. I remember the day this came out. I bought it on cassette. With my allowance, you know, you always remember those first albums that you buy with your own money, and they stand out to you. Got to ask you about Out of Touch. Your 6th #1 hit, 14th straight top 40 hit, and it arrived, as I understand, through a little serendipity. You know, started as a synth song, might be cool for the stylistics, but then you kind of came in and made it something totally different. Tell me about that.
Yeah, you know the stories, man. That's exactly what it was. He gave it to Arthur Baker,
Yeah.
who we were working with, and Arthur goes, "What are you, crazy? You're going to give that song to those guys?" So then he came back to me. He said, "Arthur thinks we should do this song." So I wrote the verses, and I can't remember who collaborated on the lyrics of the verses. I think Sarah was involved in that too.
Talk about music videos. I know you're not a big fan, but that is one of those music videos of the 80s that people definitely remember.
Yeah, the idea of that bell sound, that's a very Philly Tommy Bell thing.
Yeah.
To kind of ghost the melody with vibraphone or some kind of thing like that. So that's where I got that from.
Yeah.
My Philly days. And we stuck it together. That's, you know, Maneater and Out of Touch and She's Gone are 3 unique songs because they were collaborations with John. We didn't do that very much, you know. It was usually my songs, but they stand out as notable exceptions.
You're out of touch. I'm out of time.
There's so much going on in Method of Modern Love. Like, that's a song that, wow. I mean, that's a headphone song. Like, and you still won't hear everything going on with the best pair of headphones. Tell me about that one.
We literally threw everything at that, you know. I mean, but we didn't. There's always the challenge to do that kind of stuff without overproducing it, you know. But like, for example, that bok, 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 bok that you talk about if you put your headphones on. It's a part of the groove that goes on. We had a Boy Scout canteen, and we hit that and put an echo on it, so it did that thing. Bop, 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 bop. And the crazy stuff like that, is but it's a very complex song. I mean, it's one of my more complex songs. They're just the chord pattern is unusual. It's an unusual song, and Jana had a lot to do with that song too, but it was mostly my keyboard.
With the canteen, you're definitely following in the Motown. When it's talking to Lamont Dozier, to tell me all the different things that they would use in their songs. That the snow chains and he said,
you never know, man.
Everything but the kitchen sink.
Sometimes the kitchen sink. That could have a good sound,
right? My favorite song you've ever done is "Some Things Are Better Left Unsaid." To me, that is a masterpiece. You took a line from an earlier song of yours, "London Luck and Love."
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those songs that I wrote on the 12-string guitar, and it does have an aural landscape that's really amazing. I mean, we just came up with that. It's a very personal song, and as are many of my songs, but that's particularly personal, and I like the way it builds. It's very introspective throughout the song, wistful.
Feel like I can run away.
And then suddenly, wham! That big thing comes in, and the whole thing opens up into another world. It's like a door opens. That's what I was looking for. I wanted it just like, here you are in here, and then suddenly, okay, there's something else is going on, and it kind of describes that emotion.
I've always thought that it was, for my money, it's the best song from the Daryl Hall and John Oates catalog, and I think it should have done so much better than it did. And you just never know. Sometimes a song comes out, and it's just the environment that it comes out in, or the moment. If it would have been released 2 months earlier, it might have been bigger. I mean, it's still big. I mean, it's still a top 20 hit.
Yeah, I mean, things run their course, man. Especially in the world, in that kind of world, in the radio world. We have so many hits in a row, and then that was a different kind of song, and maybe they went, okay, that's enough. We close the shop.
Break It Down to the Real Thing is one I definitely want to ask you about. As a closing track and great song. Tell me about that one.
Everyone, can we break it down to the real thing?
Well, that's my Philly roots coming through. I mean, that's I've had that's a song I had for a while.
Ooh, all I want.
We sort of needed a way to close the album, and I thought that it could bring it back to Philly for the last song, and do that, that kind of Philly harmony and the whole thing.
Break it down, the real understanding.
That's my true roots coming through there.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
To the real thing.
What are you most grateful for in this moment, looking back?
I'm grateful for being able to work with all the people that I work with. And on top of that, the audience. I have a very particular audience. They literally love what I do. At least that's what they tell me. And I believe them, because they show that. They show the love. And it's very moving, very, very stimulating to me and it keeps me going and gives me a reason to do what I do.
Make sure to pick up Daryl Hall's new album, D Below. It is so good. Every song is just distinct and different. As great a solo album as he's ever put out. Link to it below. Click on it and go check it out. Get it on vinyl. That's what you got to do. Leave us a comment about Daryl Hall and about these incredible songs, some of the greatest songs, the standards of the 70s and 80s, songs that will last for thousands of years. What's your favorite Daryl Hall song? What do you think about his new album? Let's have a great discussion. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.